Great. Well, we're going to begin our first session, and I'd like to invite up a dear friend, the former director of the Canada Institute, the Woodrow Wilson Center, and currently with Johns Hopkins, longtime Canadian Studies professor and writer of so many books, fellow Michigander, Chris Sands. Dr. Chris Sands, come on up here, and he'll be introducing our fireside chat with the ambassador. Dr. Sands has been an amazing, I've been with him so many times. He is the expert on U.S. Canada relations, hands down. Nobody else can beat him. Anyway, Chris, there you go.
Thank you very much, Matt. I don't ever want to be an expert in a room full of so many practitioners here. You know, we often joke in academia, it works in theory, but will it work in practice, you know? And you guys are the practitioners. You're the people who lead this region and have made the Pacific Northwest and PNWER in particular the heart of Canada-U.S. relations, administration after administration. And I really salute all of you here for your contributions, especially you, Matt. Thank you very much. So it's my pleasure to welcome a newcomer to PNWER, as far as I know, first time attendee, Ambassador Pete Hoekstra. And as a Michigander, I guess I've followed his career a little bit longer than some of you, but I can tell you something about him. I wrote my notes just because I wanted to get his story right. So Ambassador Hoekstra served 9 terms in the United States House of Representatives. He voted in favor of the NAFTA implementing legislation in his first term, was 11 months in, and he called it one of the toughest decisions of his life or his career in office. He was in Congress on September 11, 2001, and made it through, as we all did, those terrorist attacks, and then became part of the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. So knows a lot he can't still tell us, but about what we did in those days, and knew just how Canada and the U.S. worked together in that time period, as we saw in the film earlier. He's one of the founding members of the House Tea Party caucus in 2010, and President Trump asked him to become ambassador to the Netherlands in his first term. He was born in the Netherlands. We're a country of immigrants still, and we benefited from having him come and be a leader in this country. And in 2024, he was asked by the president to help organize Michigan. Michigan Republican Party was in something of a jam. He was able to turn things around, deliver Michigan for the president. The president, rumor has it, turned to him and said, "Pete, what do you want to do?" And he chose Canada. And I think that says a lot about his commitment to this region and what it is he wants to do. So with that, let me hand it off to the ambassador. Welcome.
I think you mentioned this is the most dangerous spot in the building, perhaps. So I'm just going to stand over here. But Chris, thank you for that kind introduction, and Matt, thank you for inviting me to PNWER. Is that how you? Okay. It's great to be with you and just share some thoughts about the Canadian and American relationship at this time. It's great to know that I'm not expected to be the expert because I'm standing next to the expert. So, you know, that also means that when Chris and I talk, he can correct everything that I've just told you. So it is great to be here, and it's great to have the opportunity to serve as America's representative to one of our closest allies. And you know, say, what do you mean? It is our closest ally. Well, it's the same thing the Dutch claim. All right, the Dutch claim that they were the ones that fired the first salute to the American flag, and so that makes them special. They are also the country that has never, at least as they say it, they never have fired a shot at anger at the United States of America. I sometimes believe that they maybe shot and they missed and said, wow, that was really a mistake. Maybe we should just tell them it was a salute and they'll fall for it. But whatever the story is, you know, representing America to both of those countries has been a great honor. Let me talk a little bit about where I see this relationship and those types of things, and what we're working on as an embassy, and what I hope many of you are working on as well. We know we're going through change, but we also know that that's going to come to an end. Whether it's August 1, I don't see it extending a lot past that. I'd be surprised if we were still talking about it on September 1. But, you know, within the next 2 to 4 weeks, 6 weeks, we are going to understand what the new parameters are for trade between our two countries. And I'm very, very optimistic that, as was said, when you have change, you know, it also spells opportunity. And I believe that as we reframe this relationship, there's going to be more opportunity to grow this relationship in a much stronger, in a much bigger way than what we have today. So I'm an optimist about where we can go and what we can accomplish and where I think we will end up. I think you got to step back, though, and take a look at how did we get here? Okay, you know, and we went through an election. We made a choice in America. And Donald Trump was very clear about the types of change that he wanted to put in place and the types of challenges that we faced as a country. You know, I served on the budget committee when I was in the House of Representatives. I also went through the period when we actually balanced the budget for 4 years in the 1990s. Nobody said it could be done then. I hear the same thing today. Everybody says you can't get back to a balanced budget. It's not whether we can or cannot. The bottom line is Donald Trump said we need to get back and get our fiscal house in order. There is no way that America can survive the way that we are, if we continue to have $2 trillion of annual deficits, and I think now an accumulated debt of $37 trillion. We can no longer survive the way that we have as a country if we continue to witness the hollowing out of key sectors in our economy. I'm from Michigan. I'm from the Midwest. I ride by those shuttered factories and those types of things on a regular basis. We can't survive. You know, Donald Trump believed we couldn't survive in an environment where we had uncontrolled access to our country across our borders. We need managed borders, not borders under out of control. And on a global basis, we needed a strong Western military alliance to bring stability to the world and not a divided, weak organization. So those are the kinds of things that Donald Trump brought to the White House. Those are the things that we debated during the campaign, and the American people made a choice. I understand, you know, there's a lot of different viewpoints in this room, but that is the voice and that is the direction that won our election this last time around. And Donald Trump has started to implement that. And he focused on 3 things. We want to bring prosperity, security, and safety to America. And, you know, I was reading a Wall Street Journal article this morning, and they talked about the resiliency and that the American economy is coming back, and they weren't quite sure why, but they put it on consumer spending. And it's like, have you ever considered that in the last 6 months, these are the types of things that have happened in Washington? We created some more certainty in terms of our tax environment because we passed a massive tax bill that many of us believe will restore and strengthen our economy and allow for significant investment back into the United States, especially into the manufacturing, because of the expense items that were put into that bill. Have you thought that maybe there's more certainty into the American economy because, amazingly, we have secured our borders? You know, there's different estimates that are out there in terms of how much progress we made, but most people are saying that the progress has been in the high 90s in terms of reducing the flow of illegal folks coming into the country. And the opportunity that that presents is now for Congress to step back and say, wow, we've controlled the borders. Maybe now is time for us to actually do comprehensive immigration reform that maybe Republicans and Democrats can agree on, so that we can get back to managed borders and managed immigration. All right. We also think that, these types of changes will, will help our economy. And then the last thing is, we are so appreciative to Canada and others of our allies in NATO that have not only committed to reaching 2%, but more than doubling that, and saying we are going to commit to spending we're going to commit to spending 5% of our GDP on our joint national security. That is a huge, fundamental shift for NATO to make that kind of a commitment, recognizing the challenges that are out there, the instability, whether it's in the Middle East, whether it's in Europe, whether it's the cartels and other non-government, threats to our security that we are dealing with. And we're now going to be in a position where the West, the significant portions of the West, have made a huge, huge commitment to investing and hopefully bringing stability. So, we've done, 3 of the pillars: fundamental tax reform, immigration reform, national security reform, and now we need to get this tariff thing done. And if you listen to the president's team, if you listen to the Canadian team, and these types of things, they are shooting to get this done by August 1. So the question is, because I'm not involved in the negotiation, yes, I feed information to the people who are making the decisions on behalf of the president or preparing materials that will go to the president. So what are we spending our time? What am I spending my time on? And what are you spending your time on? Yeah, there's been damage to the American-Canadian relationship. I love the video. Matt, thank you for showing that and reminding us of all of the strength of this relationship. And, so it's bruised, battered, however you want to describe it. What are we going to do on August 2 if they announce an agreement on August 1? They announce an agreement on August 1. I'll probably maybe finally get around to golf in on August 2, because August 2 will be a Saturday. Not that I don't work on Saturdays, but, whether it's August 2, 3, 4, or whatever, get ready, because there are certain fundamental things that will not have changed. All right. We'll know what the agreement is, but the bottom line is we still share this huge border. 90% of Canadians still live within 100 miles of the border. We will still have this huge trade relationship. That will not have changed. Okay, we're still trading every day. There are a lot of people that are, making their livings by shipping stuff back and forth across the border each and every day. When I was on the Intel committee, I traveled around the world, and I remember when we went from one administration, the Bush administration, to the Obama administration, and I'd be in the Middle East, and I'd be talking to our operators on the field at the grassroots level, and I'd say, we got a change in policy at the top and those types of things. How does this affect your day-to-day work? And they kind of say, Pete, we kind of ignore the noise at 30,000 feet. Our job is to go out and find the bad guys, stop them from doing bad things, in a lot of different ways. So yeah, we're aware that there may be some noise and chatter and disagreement at the top, but the bottom line is our job is to keep America safe. So every day we go out and we go do our jobs. And I think a lot of that has happened here in the business community as well. It's kind of like we still have customers to serve. And I fully understand that tariffs, get right at the heart of business and may make it easier, make it more difficult to get your jobs done. But we're going to get clarity on that, and you're going to have the opportunity to restructure your businesses around the new reality And like I said, I think we will move forward and we'll move forward positively. The large border, the population, the trade, the relation, we will still have a strong relationship on national defense. It goes NATO, Five Eyes, NORAD. Those things are not going to go away. Providing a security to the the North American continent, that's not going to go away. We're going to continue working together on those kinds of issues. Energy, new evolving sectors, critical minerals, and these types of things that I think when our negotiating teams get done with the work that they're doing, these are smart people. They're going to recognize the strengths that each country brings to the relationship. Both countries are fostered on stability, security, but most importantly, they're also very, very focused on bringing prosperity to their people. That ultimately is going to be the determinant as to whether they are going to be successful or not. Are the lives of everyday Canadians going to be better or worse than what they were before? And I can tell you that is the focus of Donald Trump. Will the lives and the opportunity for Americans be better after these things are put in place, or will they be worse? And so it's about prosperity, stability, and strength. I have watched Donald Trump and Mark Carney interact. I think they have a mutual respect for each other. They're both very, very talented people. So I am very optimistic that we are going to come out of this with an upbeat solution that will enable all of us to get going on August 2 to take advantage of the new opportunities that will be provided to us. I hope it's resolved on August 2, but whether it's August 2 or August 16 or September 2, whatever it is, there's going to be more opportunities for us to grow our economies, protect our people, and to move forward. So with that, I guess I'm got to sit down and answer your questions for a while. So, hey, thank you very much.
I love the whole stand and deliver. Lou Gossett Jr., very, very effective. I thought that was good. I remember during the election, Prime Minister Carney, this was just in April, said the Canada-U.S. relationship as we know it is over. It's a bit of melodrama maybe, but do you think, as much as you think there's going to be continuity, are there things that really will change, that have to change? What would you say about the talks? You said you weren't, leading the negotiation, but you have a sense of what might be possible.
Well, I mean, it's what the negotiators decide they want the outcome to be. Is there an opportunity for this to be, the old relationship is done, okay? Because I believe that from our standpoint, we believe it can be better. It can be better for America. And I'm assuming that the premier or the prime minister is going into this believing that going through this process with America and going through it with Donald Trump, that he can negotiate something that will present a better vision for Canada. And I hope, I'm hopeful it is one that builds on the success that we've built over the last 50, 100 years.
The Prime Minister, I think, sometimes talks about the security and economic agreement he wants as being a chapeau on top of the USMCA. And I know I mentioned that you were tough on NAFTA, ultimately supported it, but it was a tough decision. And then you saw USMCA in the first term as it's come about. How do you see those two relating, and what's your feeling about USMCA? We go into a review next year. Any things that you would love to see them take on?
Depends on how broad the agreement is. I think one of the things that I hope they take on is the kind of latitude that countries have to add non-tariff barriers to trade. All right. The Canadians treated as I listen, and I'm very careful in terms of how I characterize my Canadian friends. Okay, but the Canadian friends say that they are hurt because they've been treated badly by America, because Donald Trump has talked about tariffs. Okay, remember that right now the tariffs are only on a small portion of trade between the U.S. and Canada. And the, anything under USMCA is protected. We didn't really get too excited about the digital services tax, although the numbers with the digital services tax would have been significantly higher than what Canada's experiencing on tariffs today, I believe. Okay. That was passed after USMCA, and that was a direct attack on American digital companies. That was not a fair across the board digital tax. It directly went after American businesses and enterprises. Okay. We don't really like the Online Streaming Act, which again is targeted specifically at American industries. We're not real excited about the content, the content of movies and streaming and all of that. That appears to be a direct attack again on the largest producer of this type of content in the world, which is the U.S. And so it's like, no. There are things that have happened since USMCA that have been direct economic attacks against the United States of America. And I understand the dissatisfaction or the uncertainty or the anger or the hurt, however you want to characterize it, about Donald Trump talking about changing this relationship. But Canada's also been doing the same thing for a period of time, just nibbling away at different little pieces and it not getting as much of attention as the president talking about. So limit, more accurate, more effectively spell out the relationship moving forward, and rather than countries coming up with creative ways to limit the trade and the fairness of trade, say no, that stuff's off the table. And it's off the table because we understand it, and it's not off the table because, well, if you don't like it, you've got a way to appeal it, and you can appeal it to this organization, and they'll make a determination as to whatever happened was appropriate or not.
Reminds me a little bit, I know this is a Michigan thing, but the Auto Pact in '65, where the agreement...
Auto Pact of '65?
I know.
You are the expert, I'm not, okay?
Well,
so yeah.
In the sense that we did sign the agreement, it was held as a big step forward for free trade, but then Canada had letters of undertaking with the manufacturers to guarantee jobs in Canada and investment in Canada, that then the Nixon administration followed up and said, well, this is outrageous. You've done a dirty deal behind our back. So
yeah, I think that was June 15 at 9 o'clock in the morning that came out. I remember that now, yes.
Well, all right. So the Nerd Bowl is over. We'll move on. The USMCA review, just mechanically, it starts with a Free Trade Commission review. So the three trade ministers begin, but the description in the agreement is that it is a joint review to go over everybody's grievances and where we might be able to do the agreement, take the agreement a little bit further. Are you optimistic? We should probably have a meeting September, October this year to start this process off, or any concerns that you'd love to see on that agenda?
Talk to me on August 2.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's see where this agreement goes. It may, if the agreement goes far enough, it may address a lot of the concerns that we have going into the review. Or does the agreement just push a bunch of those things into the review?
Yeah.
I think that I don't know where it's going to go.
No, that's fair. Energy. I have to talk about energy. It's one of the biggest components of our bilateral trade. And in this region, you've got hydroelectricity, the Columbia River shared between Canada and the U.S. You've got fossil fuels. The president has gone all in on all modes. And I think, as our friends at Microsoft and elsewhere know, with AI, possibly with EVs or AVs, automotive vehicles, or vehicles that can drive themselves, there's going to be huge demand for electricity, for power. The administration seems to be going all in. Can we create and improve on our relationship on energy so that we have a little bit of stability, predictability, but also can expand capacity to meet some of the challenges our economy faces?
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. I mean, the natural resources, energy is one of those things that we've got a great relationship on. I mean, I think it's what, 200, I don't know. There's a lot of oil and gas that flows south every day.
Yeah.
We take it, we process it. We don't buy it from Alberta at a discount. Okay, we pay fair market value, so it's a good deal for Alberta. Some of my Alberta friends are probably, oh, where did he get that from? That's my talking point, and I'm sticking to it. Okay, yeah, and but it's Canada is and the U.S. We're blessed with an abundance of energy. And so, but the world's going to need more of it because of all the things that Microsoft is doing, okay, with artificial intelligence and these types of things that will make us obsolete. You and I obsolete.
I'm
okay?
already obsolete.
But so it's and energy is the one. I think when I've talked to my friends from Canada, they said, energy is one of those things that right now we probably have enough for 250 years. So as Canada develops other markets, you just shipped your, I think, first LNG shipment to Asia. It's kind of like, American can celebrate that. Okay, great deal. Yeah. Good. That's good for Canada. It's good for the Canadian people. It's good for their prosperity. And Canada probably still has enough to send a little bit more down to the U.S. Sure. That's not an issue. So you do that, we can become, I don't go back to the 60s, but I do go back to the 70s. We can become OPEC on steroids of the late 70s with where we are with energy. It's oil, it's gas, but it's also nuclear. Right. You have uranium, you can mine it, you can process it to a certain state. I hear that, remember, he's the expert, but that, Canada's not necessarily totally excited about enriching. We used to be the largest enricher of uranium. 2 of the 3 largest countries today in the enrichment business are Russia and China. There's some going on in the EU. Enrichment, it's not a bad idea that perhaps enrichment could move back to North America. If Canada doesn't want it, we would probably be a good partner with Canada to fulfill that supply chain.
And fast follow-up on that on critical minerals. The first Trump administration, there was a critical minerals joint action plan between the U.S. and Canada. We went through the subsequent administration. Here we are. We still haven't seen a lot of those projects move forward, both on processing and mining. How can we work together to get some things going there? Because clearly China's got a huge advantage in controlling so much of the processing of some of these critical minerals.
I'm hoping critical minerals are part of this agreement.
Yep.
It's good for for both countries. And I think you'll hear us all say that, whatever side we're on the border, that as we develop these things, it is good for both of us.
Yes.
It is good for Canada that Americas will take capital because, I mean, it's, again, we're each other's one of the largest foreign direct investors. Canadians into the U.S., U.S. into Canada. I know that through our government, through our Defense Department, we have invested in mining in certain places in Canada. Maybe it's time to accelerate that.
Yep.
Okay. And that this agreement that we come up with will allow for that acceleration because it would be great if, again, North America was able to be in a position where we were self-reliant. We produced all the critical minerals that we needed, and we wouldn't be put in a position where we'd have to rely on China, Russia, or things like that.
Well, and I know you'll know this. We aren't going to be able to do it with government capital. It'll all have to be private sector, and we need to create some predictability so investors are willing to put their money into that kind of project.
The most effective investment that we believe is private sector investment.
Absolutely.
And not government investment. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. I want to think north, the Arctic, and sort of our northern border security come together in a way. We need to think more about what's going on in the Arctic. We also need to think about our northern border. Talk a little bit about the security agenda there, and whether you think there's more we can do in the Arctic, whether you think the Canadian plans to beef up their Arctic presence militarily is going far enough. NORAD modernization also underway.
NORAD modernization, my understanding, is a great plan. It needs to be implemented and funded. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the Prime Minister has indicated a willingness to participate in Golden Dome. Mm-hmm. That protects the continent. Mm-hmm. Okay, it would be a great program to partner with Canada on. Mm-hmm. Canada's natural partner for protecting its northern border, is probably the United States and not the EU. Mm-hmm. Okay, it's just geography kind of defines things for you and just kind of simplifies things for you. And so, hopefully, we reach agreement on doing Golden Dome, and again, we do it together. I mean, our history militarily has been on interchangeability and interoperability. Okay, and America recognizes, so Canada buys a lot of military goods, and we recognize we need to compete for that business each and every day. Just about every major U.S. defense contractor is also what? A major employer and producer in Canada. I tell a little story about when I got to Congress. You may remember Jack Murtha.
I do, yeah.
Okay, Jack Murtha was a congressman, and Jack represented a district in Pennsylvania. And you would look at that district and it's like, wow. And I may get some of these names wrong, okay, but Boeing's there, Lockheed is there, and you go through a long list of defense contractors, and you say, why are they all in Pennsylvania? That is not a natural place for them. That is not a military defense hub. It was, and why? One of my political friends tell me why that was a defense hub, developed into a defense hub in the United States of America. The lieutenant governor got it. Jack chaired the Defense Appropriations Committee. So, a little bit of that money always seemed to find its way into Pennsylvania. But, when I was in the Netherlands, they were making a decision as Canada's going through as to whether to buy the F-35. They thought it was the best plane, good price, great value. And then they looked at one more thing. Wow, we put a couple of $100 million into the development of the F-35. We actually make parts for every F-35 that is built, whether it's going to the Netherlands, whether it's going somewhere else. It only makes sense for us to buy the F-35. So yes, in a cheap political sales pitch, it makes sense for Canada to buy the F-35 because, excuse me, you invested a couple of $100 million into the investment, and every F-35 that has ever been built has some Canadian content in it, much more than the money that Canadians put into the development, and it's a darn good plane.
It's before your time. It's a little nerdy too, but we signed a 1956 Defense Production Sharing Agreement. I know, but it allows Canadian defense material, things that go into defense products, to be counted as domestic for U.S. Pentagon purchasing.
Thank you.
It's a very important breakthrough. I know that the Biden administration started negotiating with Britain, Japan, Korea, and Australia, similar deals, which so far have not been concluded. I wonder if this is on your radar. I worry that we'll get 21st century agreements with other allies, and Canada, with an agreement that goes back to the 50s, could use an upgrade.
It
Would
could
that be
use
on
an
the table?
It actually is on our radar screen.
Excellent.
What Chris is describing is that a Canadian company that makes parts for our defense industry, and we've got, domestic content and those types of things in our acquisition laws. But if someone is buying or manufacturing something that includes Canadian content, for the law, that content coming from Canada is considered domestically produced. Canada products are considered American made. We think it would be a good idea to have reciprocity.
Sure.
That for stuff, similar types of things in Canada, that parts and materials that are made in America could maybe be considered Canadian content. Mm-hmm. So yeah, maybe after 70 years, that would be a good idea. That would be a good upgrade. Yes, it is on our radar screen.
Excellent. I can't resist my last question before we open it up. If we can open up, can we open? We can, yes. But my last question for you really relates to this impressive group. This is always such a gathering of leaders from across the Pacific Northwest. They're NGO leaders, business leaders, and of course, legislators, and some federal folks as well. If you could put out a call to action, what can this region do to support you and your work, but also support the Canada-U.S. relationship now? Is there anything where you'd like them to step up, do more, or even just continue doing what they're doing? What's on your agenda if you could ask them to get to work?
No, I think I'm fairly consistent on this. It's not about helping my work. Donald Trump will take care of that. Whether I do my work or not, and whether I continue to do that job or not, will be Donald Trump's decision. But it's how do we bring success to the U.S. and how do we bring success to Canada? And having now been in Canada for 90 days, which makes me an expert, somewhat less than you. But we need advocates for the Canadian-American relationship, okay? Because where I've been for the last 90 days, there's no advocates for the Canadian-American relationship. Canada ran an election where both parties said, or one party said, elbows up, and the other one said, me too. The business community has been relatively quiet. And so when people now come to me and say, well, your favorability has gone down and China's has gone up and you're now within 10 points, it's kind of like, yeah, what's the surprise here? There's nobody been advocating for the strength of the relationship, that a way forward, is not to, trash that relationship, but encourage leadership on both sides about the strength of this relationship and how we have both prospered from it and how we need to move on. And so we need more advocates saying, folks, don't ignore history. This relationship is as strong as it is for a number of reasons. And those reasons aren't really changing that much. You're not going to change the geography, all right? You're not going to exchange, culturally, we still have a lot of the same, we have a lot of the same things in place. Because people talk a little bit about the auto industry. The auto industry, the connection between the U.S. and Canada is amazing. Okay, think about it. You make a part in Windsor in the morning, And in the afternoon, and you probably have that out here as well, in the afternoon, it's on a vehicle going to a dealership or already sold vehicle going to a customer. That's amazing. And do you really think, number one, does Canada or does the EU, are they looking for someone to produce more vehicles for them or produce more auto parts? I think they got plenty of capacity, especially because their industry has been hollowed out by China. They're doing enough to, keep their Europeans employed. Plus, you guys together, we have built a phenomenal supply chain. The supply chain is not built around winning a quote in Europe, making the part in Windsor, putting it in a box or a rack, putting it in a container, putting it on a ship, shipping it to Rotterdam, okay, putting it on a train, and then shipping it to a factory in Germany. I'm sure Canadian suppliers in Windsor can figure out how to make that happen because the system that they have in place now is light years ahead of that model. Okay? So let's not trash those kinds of things. Speak about the strength of the relationship and enter the negotiations and the discussions about how we can make this bigger and better.
Fantastic. And I want to thank the organizers. They're giving me the questions. And if you are watching this or sitting in the audience and want to get a question in, the Whova app is the way to do it. And I have some of the questions here on the screen from our audience. Top of the line, you can see it there, Ambassador. Given our strong economic integration between the countries, how can legislators on both sides of the aisle be encouraged to see Canada not just as an ally, but as a strategic partner in long-term domestic priorities? I guess both sides of the aisle being the Americans, the Republicans and the Democrats.
Sure.
Can we achieve some unity there? Are there any things you think we ought to be thinking?
Yeah, I think it's probably just coming to a close now. Today we had 5 U.S. senators in Ottawa, meeting with Anand, the foreign minister, meeting with the prime minister, meeting with Champagne, LeBlanc, meeting with all the key people, and they are reinforcing to Canada the strength and the appreciation that we have for the relationship we have with Canada. They are the second Senate Codel that we've had in Ottawa in 3 weeks.
Fantastic.
And these are the first 2 Senate Codels that we've had in 5 years.
That's tremendous. And I will just, not to correct, but for those of you who are Americans, when he says they're meeting with Champagne, he means Philippe Champagne, not necessarily that they're having drinks at the meeting, which might make a good meeting.
Yeah, it might help make the meetings better, yes. Yes.
Excellent. Well, one of the issues that we've had.
I see one on FIFA.
Yeah, FIFA and the World Cup, that's coming up fast. This region is going to be a hotbed of some games.
Yep.
Looking at the World Cup of soccer, what can we do to get people traveling again and really make the most of this historic opportunity? Something that started under the first Trump administration.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, Canadians staying home, that's their business. I don't like it, but if that's what they want to do, it's fine. You want to ban American alcohol, that's fine. It doesn't necessarily send real positive signals in terms of they're treating us well. There are reasons why the president and some of his team refer to Canada as being mean and nasty to deal with, okay, because of some of those steps. But that's Canadians' business, not mine. Although I can get alcohol across the border if I wanted to, because we go back and forth to Michigan and they don't check my car when I come back. Okay, but the border. I've got a couple of meetings over the next 2 or 3 days when I'm up here. We'll be meeting with the lieutenant governor, and I'm sure that that's one of the things that he'll want to talk about is what can we do to facilitate cross-border traffic. With FIFA and all of that happening, and hopefully they've got some good things in the works to make that happen.
Yep, so. Absolutely. And make it so that people who come from outside North America are able to have a good time at the games, and we keep the bad guys like the British soccer hooligans out.
That's right. Absolutely. Yes. They were awful in Amsterdam. So don't let them do to Seattle or Vancouver what they do to Amsterdam.
Words to remember.
Yeah.
We've got a priority. Both countries invest in infrastructure, energy transition, economic security. Is there some potential for, I'd say, bipartisan alignment in the U.S., but you could also say all-party alignment in Canada? And if you could talk about how we could work together with provinces. They're so powerful in Canada. They have a lot of responsibilities. As you work with provinces, are you finding good traction with some of them there?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still trying to, there's a couple of political things I can't figure out in Canada. I'm trying to understand. One of which is this provincial thing. Like on the Columbia River Treaty, I think this is the one, it's between the province of British Columbia and the United States. And it's like, how does that work? Okay, but hopefully we're going to get that resolved. The other one that I can't totally figure out is how the Canadian Senate works. You're appointed till you're 75, and it's like that's kind of a good deal. But how does that work in practicality? Because they have some powers and authorities, but not everything. And it's like, so those are two that I'm going to work on. What's going on in Washington, bipartisanship. I had dinner last night with Congressman Larson, and Washington is tough right now. But both Codels of senators have been bipartisan. Rick he's the ranking member on our House Transportation Infrastructure Committee, and I think on Wednesday they've got a major Coast Guard reauthorization bill or reform bill that's being done in a bipartisan way. So there are hopes for bipartisanship, and I think, when I got confirmed through the Senate, picked up some Democrat votes, and we got through very, very quickly because they recognized on a bipartisan basis the relationship, the importance of the relationship between the U.S. and Canada. I think that relationship is a bipartisan relationship, and I feel very, very good about that.
Something that came up in your confirmation hearing, and I feel like that'll be our last question, but I wanted to give you an opportunity to address that phrase, and we've had several people in the Q&A flag it, 51st state. Can we move beyond that now? I mean, the president hasn't said it as often or as much, but where do you see that fitting in? Is that a red herring, or is that something that you think we can move past?
The Canadians can talk about it as much as they want, okay? They say they're hurt and they were insulted, and it's kind of like, well, it's not a whole lot of people or countries that we've asked to become the 51st state that I can remember. I mean, do you remember back in?
No.
I mean, you're the historian. It's kind of like, it's because, I don't want to get into it, okay? This is about, my marching orders from the president are, Pete, you've got to do things that make America more prosperous, make America more secure, and make the American people more safe. The unsaid rule there is, Mr. President, I understand those are the things that I will work on. There are issues that are clearly above my level. The 51st state, idea, that is something that is at the president's level. It is at the Mark Carney level. If they want to have those discussions, they can have those discussions, but those are not my marching orders, so I don't talk about it, okay? He's given me more than enough to keep my plate full and to move forward, so.
Excellent. Well, I know I teach at International Affairs School, and you're an ambassador. So if the 51st state went forward, we'd both be out of work. So it's probably good that we move beyond that as quickly as possible.
I've got a comeback, but I can't use it. So
Well, that
All
is
right.
rare restraint.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. And please join me in thanking the Ambassador. The relationship's in good hands.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right. Have the dangerous for getting off the stage.